Today in class we looked at factoring, and when we're doing factoring we needed to first learn how to identify our greatest common factor. So, looking at a problem like number 3, we have to ask ourselves what term or terms can be factored out of both sides of this expression. And so, looking at factors, I see right away I have two numbers that are multiples of 11. So 11 would be a factor that would go into 22 and into 55 and would be my greatest common factor. But I also have an r on both sides of the expression, so I could factor out an r. And if we were to go ahead and just factor out this entire expression, we would end up with 22r divided by 11r is 2. Plus 55r divided by 11r is 5. And if we wanted to check our answer to make sure we were correct, we could say 11r times 2 is 22r. 11r times 5 is 55r. And we would know that we had correctly factored this expression. And then our GCF is what we were able to factor out, 11r. Now, technically, we just did a full example of factoring on problem 3, but our focus was just on identifying what that GCF was. So on problem 7, the directions simply say to factor. So we need again to find out what our GCF is. What number is the largest possible number that goes into both of these terms? And it's coming to mind that 4 looks like it goes into both of those terms. So I would ask myself, how many times does 4 go into 32? That would be 8. Keep the x because I didn't have an factor or an x on my other term in the expression, so I could not factor out an x. Minus, well, 4 goes into 20 5 times. So my factor... when I factor this expression, I will be left with 4 times the difference of 8x minus 5 in parentheses. I'm not exactly sure what I did setting up problem 11, so for this evening, go ahead and skip it. There's a couple of different ways we could factor that, but we didn't discuss any of them in class, so we will look at that tomorrow in class. And then number 13, explain how you could find the product mentally by factoring. And we talked about this briefly in class of just simplifying one of the terms in the expression so that we can do multiplication much more quickly in our head. So we could do that for this first problem by saying 12 times 60 plus 4. And the reason we choose a term that is a multiple of 10 is because we know we can multiply 6 times 12, which would be 72, and add a 0. So 60 times 12 would be 720, and then we could do 12 times 4 in our head and put the two numbers together. It's just a kind of a shortcut for being able to multiply numbers, but it utilizes our factoring rule and our distribution process that we've been learning in class. Hopefully this gave you just a quick overview of factoring and a refresher on what we did today in class. Thanks.